Greetings and salutations, this is Brian from Mechbladestudios. So, I kinda like Godzilla. How could you not? Giant dinosaur-looking monster who wrecks everything in his path, breathes radiation, and fights other monsters? Who couldn't like that unless they really dislike the whole suitmation process or iffy dubbing?
Make my day.
My counter-arguments? Suitmation means there's actually something in front of the camera, meaning the monsters look more realistic, and you don't have to listen to the dubs, just watch with subtitles. Okay, just a quick aside for the can of worms I just opened with subs and dubs. I like both just fine. Dubs make it easier for me to take notes, but I have no problem with subs either. Dubs only bother me if the performances are particularly bad or start changing the source material. If the voices fit the character, then the dub doesn't bother me. Anyway, it seems we're in the middle of a renaissance when it comes to Godzilla films. Every few years from both sides of the Pacific, we've been getting new films since 2014, the Big G's 60th anniversary. 2014's American-made Godzilla, directed by Gareth Edwards, while flawed, was a major improvement over that abomination from 1998, which is what introduced me to the franchise to begin with. Its lead human characters were sort of flat, and Godzilla and the Mutos didn't feature that much in the end, but it was a fun film with an epic conclusion. In 2016, Toho, not to be outdone by the US, gave us the first Japanese-made Godzilla film in over a decade, Shin Godzilla. Directed by Hideaki Anno, the creative mind behind Neon Genesis Evangelion, this was a hard reboot of the Godzilla franchise as a whole, depicting how Japan would realistically try to deal with Godzilla throwing a shit fit, the answer being not very well on a governmental level. It was different, creative, and thematic. Also, come on, this is the most metal design for Godzilla we've ever seen. Shortly after Shin Godzilla's released, Toho announced that they were making an animated Godzilla film, directed by Kobun Shizuno and Hiroyuki Sashita, animated by Polygon Pictures, and written by Gen Urobuchi. Yes, that Gen Urobuchi. This film would be called Godzilla, Planet of the Monsters, released in theaters in Japan on November 17, 2017, and on Netflix of all places in other territories on January 17, 2018. By the way, while I won't give away the ending, there will be minor spoilers in my plot rundown. If you don't want to know anything about the plot beyond what press releases and loglines have discussed, skip to this time code. Ready? Here we go. So the premise here is that since the end of the 20th century, kaiju have been attacking humans, but it all came to a head in 2030 when Godzilla appeared, laying waste to most of humanity. Two alien races show up to Earth for different reasons. The Exif, the elf people, show up to spread their religion, and the Bilu Saludo, the Ganondorf people, show up as refugees from a planet wiped out by a black hole. This second group of aliens volunteers to help the humans with their monster problem by building Mecha Godzilla, but it doesn't work and all three races are kicked off the planet. Our hot-blooded protagonist of the day, Haruo Sakaki, watches Godzilla kill his parents by shooting an airship out of the sky, leading it to crush the bus that they were riding to the evacuation ships. Hardly surprising given who's writing here. Now, Haruo is hell-bent on getting the human arc to return to Earth to take Godzilla down. The first act actually takes a cue from Shin Godzilla in that it focuses on the politics of this new mixed humanity, but all this amounts to is a failed colonization mission to an uninhabitable planet, and the main committee has little choice but to try returning to Earth. Haruo gives an Exif priest, Metphies, an essay on how to kill Godzilla, which Metphies then leaks on the Ark's internet, convincing the committee to bring the Ark back to Earth. The only other moment of note here is that we get a subtle implication that the two alien species had sketchier plans for the humans once Godzilla was taken out. The rest of the film follows the expedition to try to take back Earth. The Ark warps to Earth and lands, finding that during the warp from and to Earth, nearly 20,000 years have passed, and the Earth has become overgrown, inhabited by razor-sharp plants, Godzilla, and smaller flying dragon things, called Servum apparently. A woman named Yuko, the daughter of one of the dead colonists from earlier in the film, accompanies Haruo. She suspects the committee pushed the colonization mission to thin out the population of the Ark, and that's the beginning and end of her character. The characters are the weakest link in this film. Haruo is every protagonist ever, and, well, see, this is how dire the character situation is here. I can barely describe what's wrong with the other characters because they leave little to no impression. Other than the mysterious behavior of Metphies, the other characters are just there to shoot at Godzilla or get killed. I get that we shouldn't try to get ahead of ourselves and pick favorites with Urobuchi around, but we usually get to know the characters before they suffer and die. The only reason I can sort of understand why some characters are so thin now is because this is the beginning of a trilogy and we'll hopefully learn more about them in the next 2 films. The film has a bleak, nihilistic tone depicting famine, corruption, and suicide. It postulates that if there is a god, that god is very angry and will probably destroy its subjects with atomic breath. The animation is mixed. On one hand, the art style is fantastic. The ships, mechs, and other vehicles, along with the Big G himself, all look great in action. The humanoid designs look okay, though for an animated film I feel like they could have gotten more imaginative with their alien designs. Their movement, on the other hand, is extremely distractingly choppy. Ruby has more fluid animation than this. And really, this doesn't stop until the final battle against Godzilla, which is actually very well done. Godzilla's design here is both familiar and different. In terms of his silhouette and features, he looks very similar to his design in the 2014 American film in that he's big, bulky, and sumo wrestler-esque. On closer inspection though, he's actually made from plant matter and has expressive, almost serene blue eyes. Also, he's absolutely gigantic! Look, we made our Godzilla bigger than yours once, then you made Shin, and now this dude. We give up. We'll never try to outdo you again. The soundtrack is nothing special. It's background music and nothing more. None of the classic Godzilla themes make an appearance here. Without spoiling too much, well, more than I already have with my Urobuchi references, I liked the ending, but it seemed very obvious given certain visuals, certain press releases, and a certain writer. There's also a post-credits scene, and thanks to the movie being released on Netflix, you can skip right to it, but doing so would make you skip the only memorable music in the film, the ending theme, Whiteout, which I won't play here in fear of getting a copyright strike, but here's the link if you want to take a listen. I give Godzilla Planet of the Monsters a 6 out of 10. It is not great as a standalone film, but it's a promising start to a trilogy. I might have been spoiled by Shin Godzilla, but this just seems so thin and basic in comparison to that in the 1954 original, and too boring and talky compared to films like GMK and Final Wars. I really wanted to give it a 7 at least, but given how little we see Godzilla and how forgettable the characters are, there isn't much to really cling on to here outside of the premise. The art style and animation in action scenes are great, but then the animation put into quieter scenes is hilariously choppy. Hopefully these issues can be cleaned up for the sequel, because if nothing else, this film has enough good stuff in it for me to want to see a sequel, so I guess it did its job. I want to know what happens next. I want to explore this universe more. If you're a Godzilla fan, go see it. It's on Netflix, so why not? So that's it for me for now. If you enjoyed this review, leave a like and subscribe for weekly reviews of anime, video games, and movies. Also, hit that bell icon so you'll know exactly when I upload a new video. This is Brian from Mechbladestudios, signing off.